Before your eyes are even fully open, you are likely reaching for a jolt. Not water, not warmth, stimulation. And I'm not here to take your coffee away. I'm not that cruel. But I am here to talk about the signal you are introducing before the day has even properly begun. And it isn't just coffee. For some people, it's ice cold water. For others, it's a concentrated ginger shot, lemon water, a large glass chugged quickly, or a bright green vegetable juice. Different drinks, same pattern. Strong input during a quiet transition. Think about it. When you wake up, your body is still crossing a bridge. You are moving from the deep, cool repair of sleep toward the heat of activity. Blood volume is slightly lower, digestion is still a quiet room, and your nervous system is just orienting itself. In that moment of transition, strong inputs aren't neutral. They tell the body, activate, mobilize, turn outward toward engagement. And there is a time for that energy. But I want to ask you something. What if the first thing you gave your body wasn't a demand for output, but support for regulation? More often than not, it's in those moments where we allow the body to sequence itself, rather than rush it, that real resilience is built. And to understand why that sequencing matters, we need to look at what is actually happening in the first hour after we wake up. Because this window is not neutral, it's transitional. And transitions change how the body responds. When you wake up, you are not starting from zero. You are transitioning. During sleep, your nervous system was in repair mode. Your liver was processing and clearing, and your digestion was largely at rest. Through every breath and every hour, you were also losing water. So when your eyes open, your system is slightly dehydrated and relatively quiet. In Ayurveda, this early morning window is associated with kapha, a steadier, cooler quality of energy, which is often why you crave stimulation. That steadiness can feel heavy compared to the sharpness of caffeine or cold water. But that isn't something to fix. It's a kind of built-in stability before movement begins. Modern physiology describes something similar. Blood volume is still recovering, circulation increases gradually, digestive secretions are only beginning to activate, and cortisol rises naturally to guide you into wakefulness. In other words, the body is in transition, and transitions alter responsiveness. Inputs that might feel neutral later in the day can feel sharper in this window. Cold feels colder and stimulation feels stronger. So it becomes a question of sequencing. Does the system need immediate acceleration, or does it benefit from coordination first? That distinction is subtle, but it has long-term implications. You may not feel the difference immediately, but over weeks, that first signal becomes your baseline. Have you ever tried something that was technically healthy and yet it didn't feel supportive? I have. You followed the advice, you did the right thing, and still something felt slightly tense, slightly off. Not dramatic, just subtly misaligned. Ice cold water first thing in the morning can feel refreshing and clarifying, but for some people it creates contraction rather than ease. From an Ayurvedic perspective, cold dampens Agni, digestive fire, particularly before it has been kindled for the day. From a physiological perspective, cold increases smooth muscle tension and vasoconstriction, a narrowing of blood vessels that reduces circulation, which is why your hands and feet can feel colder. That same constrictive response can also slow digestive movement, which may not be what a quiet digestive system needs first thing in the morning. So the question becomes quite simple. Does your morning feel like it needs bracing or softening? That distinction alone can change how you choose. Then there is what I sometimes call the chug mentality, the idea that a large volume of water immediately will flush, detoxify, or jumpstart the system. But hydration is fundamentally about absorption, not volume. When you flood the stomach all at once, you dilute gastric acid and stretch the stomach rapidly. The body responds by increasing elimination and adjusting fluid balance to preserve stability. The kidneys and endocrine system are remarkably precise about maintaining osmotic equilibrium. They regulate what is retained and what is released. So if the body is already regulating this precisely, what happens when we overwhelm it before it's even fully awake? Often, much of that water simply moves through the system rather than into the cells where it's actually needed. So, more water does not automatically mean better hydration. The same principle applies to concentrated morning shots. Lemon, vinegar, ginger, turmeric. These substances stimulate gastric secretions and bile flow. Later in the day, once circulation and digestive activity are fully active, that stimulation can be appropriate, supporting Agni, or what Ayurveda describes as digestive strength. But in the morning, when blood volume is still recovering and digestive enzymes are only beginning to activate, strong stimulation can feel like acceleration before coordination, like asking a system to burn hotter before the fire has been properly built. And when acceleration precedes coordination, the body compensates. Again, the tool itself isn't wrong, but timing changes impact. So if cold can contract and excess can overwhelm, and sharp stimulation can accelerate too quickly, what does cooperation actually look like? If we step back from trends and intensity, what remains? Something far simpler. If we strip away trends and intensity, what remains is something remarkably uncomplicated. Warm water. In Ayurveda, drinking water at dawn is called ushapana. It was not described as a dramatic cleanse or metabolic shortcut. It was framed as part of Dinacharya, daily rhythm, a steady practice that supports vitality over time through consistency rather than force. From a physiological standpoint, this coherence is easy to understand. Warmth relaxes smooth muscle in the digestive tract and gently encourages the gastrocolic reflex, which is the body's natural elimination response. It supports circulation without triggering constriction and allows plasma volume to restore gradually rather than abruptly. There is no shock or abrupt acceleration, just coordination. And perhaps most importantly, warmth communicates safety. The autonomic nervous system interprets warmth as non-threatening. It softens contraction and supports vagal tone. If you wake up feeling slightly tight, mentally scattered, or internally hurried, warmth tends to stabilize rather than stimulate. So the practice is uncomplicated. 1 cup of warm water. Not hot, not iced, sipped slowly. Not as something to complete, as a transition into the day. For years, I assumed lemon water was the optimal choice because it was widely recommended. But I naturally run warmer, more pitta, and instead of clarity, I often felt overstimulated. When I simplified to plain warm water, the shift was subtle but meaningful. I felt steadier and less internally rushed. That experience reinforced something important for me. Sophistication is not about adding complexity. It's about appropriateness. Once the foundation of warm water feels steady, refinement becomes meaningful. Not because you need more, but because you are paying attention. So let me ask you, when you wake up, what is the quality of your internal state? Is it dry and mentally busy, heavy and foggy, slightly lightheaded or depleted? These differences matter. If you wake up feeling dry, anxious, or easily overstimulated, fennel can be gently harmonizing. It soothes rather than stimulates and has long been used in sensitive digestive states. A small amount, lightly crushed and steeped in warm water, encourages motility without sharpness. If you wake up heavy or sluggish, a modest squeeze of fresh lemon in warm water can encourage digestive activation. The emphasis here is proportion. Enough to signal readiness, not enough to overwhelm. If you notice burning or irritability, that feedback is meaningful. If you tend toward dizziness on standing or morning depletion, a small pinch of mineral-rich salt may support plasma volume and improve hydration efficiency. Again, subtlety matters. It should support absorption and not dominate the taste. You may notice that none of these suggestions are dramatic. That is intentional. They are refinements, not replacements. And the refinements work best when introduced one at a time with consistency, so that the body's feedback remains clear. Your physiology is always communicating, but it communicates more clearly when you give it simplicity. Copper vessels are traditionally used in Ayurveda to store water overnight, allowing for subtle mineral contact. You may have seen yoga teachers or Ayurvedic practitioners carrying a copper bottle or sipping from a copper cup. It has become a bit of a visual shorthand for Ayurvedic. But context matters. Traditionally, copper water was used intentionally, often seasonally, and with an understanding of constitution and environment. It wasn't meant to be a universal, all-day habit adopted without discernment. So before jumping on the trend, it's worth understanding why and when it was used. Balance, as always, is the principle. Over time, morning hydration becomes less about doing it correctly and more about paying attention. The more consistent and measured your approach is, the clearer your body's feedback becomes. What once felt confusing starts to feel predictable. You begin to notice patterns. So instead of asking, what's the best morning drink? You might begin asking a different question. What kind of transition does my system need today? Do I need warmth, gentle activation, or grounding? That awareness is the practice, not stimulation, regulation. And regulation is rarely dramatic. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't feel like a breakthrough, but quiet signals, repeated daily, compound. They shape your baseline. They shape how you enter the day. Before you go, I'd genuinely like to know, what does your morning usually feel like? Wired, heavy, clear, dry? Tell me in the comments and we can refine your morning signal together. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next practice.